Hi, so what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about graphing a piecewise function. Now, in order for you to graph a piecewise function, make sure that you are very familiar with graphing a linear equation and linear functions, as in graphing using slope-intercept form, using an x and y chart, things like that. Or you can use a graphing utility such as a graphing calculator or a graphing website. So in order to graph a piecewise function, we graph like we normally do, but we take a look at the inequalities that are off to the sides of our little functions. So for example, we're going to graph f of x is equal to x squared. So if you remember back from foundations, your x squared is just a parabola. It's a bowl that faces up. So in our particular case, I'm going to do an x and y chart in my head. So that's going to be right here and here. I'm just trying to make the graph look somewhat decent. Okay, so this right here is a rough sketch of the graph f of x equals x squared. That's the first part of our piecewise function. Now, the difference between a piecewise function and a regular function, we have to take into account the inequality part. So it's f of x is equal to x squared whenever your x is less than or equal to 1. So what this inequality over here tells us, this tells us what we have to keep. Okay? So in other words, on our parabola, we keep every part of that graph that has an x value of less than or equal to 1. So if we go to where we have our 1, or x is 1, we keep everything to the left of it. We erase everything to the right of it. So we erase all this right here. All right. Now, since our inequality is less than or equal to 1, that means we're going to have a closed dot on the x is less than or equal to 1 part, on the x is 1 part, okay? Because if it was less than, then we would have an open dot. We'd have an open circle. Now, moving on to the next one. F of x is equal to 3. Okay, so if it's equal to a constant, if it's equal to a number, that means we have a horizontal line. And we have a horizontal line at y equals 3. So this would be the second part of that piecewise function. Okay, f of x is equal to 3. However, we have to take into account the 1, which is going to be less than x, which is also less than 2. In other words, we keep all of the x values in between a positive 1 and a positive 2. All right, so we erase everything that's bigger than 2, and we erase everything that is less than 1 on that horizontal line. Okay? So we just have this little sliver right here. Now, if you notice on our inequality, we have a less than symbol on the 1. So that means we would have an open circle on the 1, and we would have a closed circle on the 2 because we have x is less than or equal to 2. All right? Now, moving on to the next one. F of x is equal to x. What this says is that we have a diagonal line that cuts right through the origin, and it looks something like this. Okay, that's what the graph of y equals x, or f of x equals x, look like. Okay, so like I said, we're graphing like normal. We just have to figure out what to keep. So in other words, we're keeping every x value on a diagonal line that is bigger than 2. So we erase everything that is less than 2. So we're erasing everything right there. Okay, we erased all that. Now we're keeping every x value that is strictly bigger than 2. Strictly bigger than, meaning we don't have a bar underneath the gator mouth. We don't have a bar underneath the inequality sign. So that means we are going to have an open circle. Now, if you were to do the vertical line test, you would see that each vertical line that you draw would only hit that graph once. Now, if you draw a vertical line through the one part right here, you would see that it only hits the open circle and then the closed circle. If it hits 2 closed circles, it's not a function. It does not pass that vertical line test. So in this particular problem right here, your graph does pass that vertical line test for piecewise functions. So this would be the graph of the piecewise function that we have displayed up here.